Welcome to the Encore today. Back with Pastor Wes after a few weeks off, maybe something like that.
Yeah, been a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. So in John 18, getting to, not that it's not been interesting before, but we're getting close to the big stories.
Yep.
The ones that people are well aware of. Getting close to the crucifixion of Christ and all that. So we'll get into that. But, dude, it's the end of November.
Yeah.
Getting into December.
Yeah.
I got one thing I got to take care of, all right? So I don't know. Okay. How long have we been doing this, the Encore?
I can't remember. I think 3 years.
I feel like it's been 3 years, too.
Maybe more, but it's a lot.
Maybe some would know this or not. Years ago, we used to play music like as an outro. Is that the right word?
Something
outro.
would always come up.
Yes, it would be related to whatever we talked about. Sometimes Christian songs, sometimes not necessarily so.
Yeah.
But one time, Michigan State pounded Michigan, and then Neil and Parker thought it would be funny, because I'm a big Michigan fan. So they jabbed me, played the Michigan State fight song. It was well played. I was like, good job. Well, a couple of our viewers wrote in, were like, hey, could we get the Michigan song? And I said, I'm a Michigan fan, but Michigan has to earn the song. Like, I'm not just playing it.
As a response.
Just as a response. I'm like, Michigan State
have they not earned it?
Haven't earned it
a long time.
No, but finally,
they did.
The Wolverines have earned the song. So today we're going to do the outro of Hail to the Victors when we close this whole thing.
Yeah, so stay to the end.
All right, let me quickly say this. I know you're not much of a sports guy as much as you used to be. You don't follow the details.
No, I'm not, but I get it.
Are you aware of, just sports-wise? I know we're trying not to talk about sports too much, but this one is relevant. Mad. Yeah, we won't do this every week. This is a unique circumstance. Are you aware of the magnitude of the win for Michigan?
I am aware. Okay. Yeah, I am aware, and I'm not a fan. I don't watch very much stuff anymore. Not out of any moral reason. I just have lost interest. I watch a lot of fighting, boxing and so forth. But I used to watch sports a lot. I used to really enjoy college football, and if I was ever a fan, I was a Michigan fan for sure. Yeah. And to this day, I still have angst toward Michigan State. I don't like those guys.
Yeah.
I don't like their fans.
Right.
I just cut half the people out.
I know. But nothing like the Ohio State fans.
I always want Michigan State to lose and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't want to root for these guys. But I was always a Michigan football specifically fan. Mm-hmm. I'm not anymore, but I'm well aware of not only the long drought, but the long arch nemesis of Ohio State, and how Ohio State has had the upper hand for far too long. So yes, I am. It's a big deal. Yeah, I don't even know how it happened. I don't know how that could have happened, but awesome,
dude.
Good for them.
Credit to Harbaugh and the team, man. They're legit. So Michigan's going to go play Saturday in their first ever Big Ten championship games. They've only had the actual championship game for I think 15 years or something like that. This is the first time they've ever been there. Yeah. It used to just be whoever had the best record was the Big Ten champ.
Yeah.
So they go to that. And then if they win, they're in the playoffs, which is a newer thing in college football. I don't know if you know all this. They take 4 teams to the playoffs.
Well, remember years ago, I used to whine to you about that dumb system.
It was a horrible system.
It was nobody liked that system.
A voted system. You played your games and they would vote for a champion.
I hated that system, but I haven't watched since that time.
So they do have playoffs now. I don't know if you knew this.
No, great.
If Michigan wins Saturday against Iowa, they'll be the Big Ten champs and they'll be in the playoffs. And there's only 4 teams.
Let's go.
So Michigan.
I might watch a football game.
You might watch a football game. But this is their biggest win in 1997, 24 years. 24 years, easily. Not even close.
The story, we might have to tell another time.
All right.
I don't know if I told you. So some people know, like, I have a past history with the Billy Graham ministry and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was, a few months, like 2 months ago, I was with Franklin Graham and his crew in New Mexico and Arizona.
Okay.
And so a whole thing about Michigan came up, and Franklin took a shot at me from the stage. And no one knew it, but he knew that I knew it.
Okay.
So he made a crack at Michigan.
Like the
knowing
football
that
program?
I would what?
Like the football program or the state?
Yes, the football team.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He took a shot at me because we had a conversation beforehand, and he got up to preach. And there was a way that it came up.
Okay.
And so he took a swing, and no one knew, but he knew that I would know. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Is it because he's from Boone and the Appalachian State?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's the whole story I would have to tell to give the context.
I get it.
Maybe another time.
Yeah.
But I was sitting there going, wow, you took time. Like,
yeah, you took time to do this. All right.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Did you have a quick question for me?
I did. I had a couple questions.
Yes.
It is the Christmas season.
Yeah,
we'll do
December. It is now December by the time this thing comes
It's December. We won't go into how we were talking as a staff this morning before we prayed how terrible fruitcake was. There wasn't one person there like it. I don't think there's anybody that likes fruitcake.
I would love
if you
to
like
know
fruitcake, I want to know who you are. I won't make fun of you.
Fruitcake.
I want to know if you like it and how that's possible.
Yeah.
Ready? I got a couple Christmas movie questions for you. Okay, I'm going to go fast. Buddy in the film Elf finds out that he was adopted by Santa and set out to find his real father in New York. Which iconic building does his dad work in?
Oh, the Empire State, definitely.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Have you seen Jingle All the Way with Arnold? It's a terrible movie.
Did you say it's a good movie?
It's a terrible movie.
Oh, no.
It's not as bad as Polar Express or Grinch, but it's terrible.
You're right about that. No, unwatched. Nope, have not seen.
Okay, all right, ready? Hold on. Okay, in one of the worst Christmas movies ever produced, The Grinch Stole Christmas starring Jim Carrey,
Yep.
the name of
movie.
the title character's dog.
Max?
Max, how did you get that?
I have seen it. It's I don't enjoy it at all, but
Okay, stand by. Die Hard?
I've never seen it. I've never actually seen it. Yeah.
First of all, I'm not recommending this to anybody, nor can we answer this question, but I know the answer. In The Santa Claus, Tim Allen plays Scott. There you are. An overworked dad who accidentally inherits the job of Santa Claus. What was Scott's original job?
Well,
I know it. I got it right.
He worked for a toy company. He made toys or maybe he was a marketer, but he worked for a toy company.
Okay, I'm going to give you that. He was an advertising executive. Okay, let's do two more.
All right,
ready?
Yeah.
Macaulay Culkin was home for the holidays in the blockbuster Home Alone. Which city did his family visit? This is so easy. Go on.
Which family did his family visit? They went to Paris.
Yeah, they went to Paris.
Yeah.
Too easy. Okay, here we go.
Part one.
Culkin was forgotten again.
He was.
2 Christmases later in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
Fabulous movies. Fabulous.
This is too easy. Which U.S. president?
Oh, was in it? It was the Plaza Hotel. Donald Trump.
It's Donald Trump.
Is in the Plaza
That's
Hotel.
way too easy. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Okay, one more.
All right.
More. You can't end on that. That is too easy.
You didn't work to get like the stumping ones. You're just firing.
No, and I'm doing ones that I know you've seen. Like for example, the one we're not doing is White Christmas with Bing Crosby.
I've never actually seen it.
Why would you?
I think it's considered the greatest Christmas movie of all time, isn't it?
Well, we beg to differ. You know what's fighting for the greatest Christmas movie of all time is Home Sweet Home Again.
Oh yeah, Home Sweet Home Alone.
Again. Home Sweet Home Alone.
Home Sweet Home Alone.
Again.
Yes, it's the reboot of Home Alone. It's fabulous.
It's real good.
Fabulous.
Okay. All right. This is taking too much time. These are dumb movies. Not going to talk about Batman Returns.
That's a Christmas movie?
I guess they think it is. All right. That's the end. We'll have to do more later.
All right.
Go on.
Maybe a couple every week leading up to Christmas.
Maybe that.
All right. So we're in John chapter 18. At this moment, Jesus is in front of the crowd. Pilate is there, and basically Barabbas is there as well. So you talked about Barabbas, which is totally true. You don't think much about it. He's kind of a forgotten character.
Totally.
In this whole thing, much of which, like I definitely knew who Barabbas was and I knew the story, but there's stuff that came to light to me that I was like, oh, I kind of want to talk about this. This is really interesting.
Me too. So let me ask this question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's good.
So it's been a long minute since I've seen The Passion of the Christ. It's not something you're looking to watch like with popcorn at all. But I have seen it. I can't remember. That movie is pretty accurate. There's a couple problems with it people may not be aware of. But I can't remember if Barabbas is in that movie at all.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. I saw it one time.
Me too.
When it came out.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to have to look that up, though.
Years,
I'm going to have to look up. If he is, I want to see the scene. I can't remember. I don't think he is.
Now I'm intrigued to watch it again. I don't know.
He might be, though. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry. So go on. Something came to mind.
Right. So the whole idea of Barabbas, you know, you knew he was kind of like, whatever, the murderer, the robber. I didn't know much. I never thought about much as, I guess the word is an insurrectionist, where you basically are rising up against the government.
They're trying to overthrow the government.
So maybe he probably had a crew of people, like there's a following.
Certainly did.
You think?
Certainly did.
Right.
Because the other Gospels give even more detail. Yes is the answer.
So when you paint the picture of Barabbas, it's like this dirty, gross guy versus the perfection of perfection, Jesus, right? It's kind of how it is. But, okay, outside of prophecy, which was obvious that Jesus was going to die, I never thought much about the practicality of why would they choose Barabbas?
Give us Barabbas, yeah.
So let's just go into all of this. I know this is part of, was not necessary for the sermon.
I know where you're headed, and it is very fascinating.
Yeah.
There just wasn't a point.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just interesting, though, and I agree with, I think, where you're headed with it. Yes, no, let's do it.
So 2 people, my wife was one of them, and then Luke McAllister, who I think he gave us these awesome mugs over here, by the way.
Luke. Yeah,
so
Luke.
Shout out to Luke. Both
thinker, that Luke McAllister.
Oh, yeah, that guy
of course
can
he
think,
thought
man.
this.
Yes.
Of course he did.
Start to ask these questions, and
yeah,
I'm not going to lie, my simple mind, I didn't think much of it. So it is possible, we don't know for sure 100% or whatever, all of Barabbas' story, but that the people probably, I don't know if I should even say the word probably, they might have liked him because if he was uprising against the Roman authorities and they are in Israel, they're not, they don't love the Romans, right?
Right.
And so they're like, he's trying to overthrow the Romans. And Luke said to me, Jessica said the same thing too. Basically, these people probably loved him because they wanted an earthly kingdom.
Well, they definitely wanted that. They wanted,
yeah.
And as you know, they wanted Jesus to be that, and were mad that he wasn't.
My kingdom is not of this world.
Overthrow the Caesar.
Yeah, and it almost seemed like the questions that Jesus gets are political, and he answers them in a eternal way, and people are like, it's not what I'm looking for, right?
Right.
Yeah, but I guess I never thought about that much because, it's in a practical level. They were like, yeah, let's root for Barabbas. If we release him, the overthrowing continues.
Yes.
Maybe we can actually get somewhere with this. So
Could
I don't know
be.
how much of that did you look into when you're prepping for your sermon? And go,
I did think about that, and then I was like, okay. It would be interesting to somebody like Luke to bring mention to that.
Yeah.
But the overall thing that I was trying to say was that because of the death of Christ, we are set free. So then we take the place of Barabbas as well.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of interesting information. Maybe some other preacher could preach a very effective application to that. So I didn't include that. But I did think about that, and then I also was, like you and I were kind of talking about this, I thought, too, that the hypocrisy of their calling for Barabbas and the accusations they bring against Jesus. So I do agree, there are some, specifically the chief priest leadership, would have some favor for Barabbas, I would think, to overthrow the Roman government. Whether the crowd did or not, I think it's a mixed bag. But it's funny that they said at the trial, he makes himself out to be a king.
Oh, yeah.
And then later they'll say, you'll see, they say, Pilate says, here is your king. And they say, we have no king but Caesar. They cheer that back, meaning kill this guy because we're loyal to Caesar, and this man has made himself out to be a king. So that warrants, so they're trying to make Jesus the insurrectionist in order to get Pilate to put him to death, which is such a fraud that they are accusing him of that because they wanted him to be that. And when he wasn't,
right.
They were not happy with him, and they wanted him crucified and a lot of other reasons. So then when it came down to a choice, they chose the one who actually did the things that they accused Jesus of. So I thought of all this, and I thought, well, how do you say,
Right.
But yes, it is a fascinating turn of events that they call for the freedom of the one that is guilty of the actual things they fraudulently accused Jesus of to get him crucified. It's crazy.
That's that's why we talk about it on here. I totally understand it. It doesn't make sense to elaborate that on the sermon, and you could belabor the point for sure. Something that I noticed from you too, especially over time and time, is like like you understand that. I'm not here to talk about every single thing there is. You got to have a point of the scripture, and you could make 15 points.
So many.
And then 14 and a half of them get lost.
It's really hard.
So I get it.
I'm glad people noticed that. Credit to them. It's an interesting thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then on the side of Pilate too, this is just, doesn't really matter. The curiosity too. Like, what a politician. You know what I mean? Like his wife comes to him and basically and says, "No, don't touch this thing." I find no fault in this guy. Right? We should release him. He is like a Roman authority, so he probably did not want to release Barabbas.
Of course not. Barabbas was trying to overthrow him, most likely.
That again, this is stuff that's now coming to my mind.
Yes.
I don't think all this through, and he basically did it because he knew that's what the people wanted, and I'm just gonna. Right?
He literally says it out. It says it in the Bible. It says the motive of his heart, wishing to satisfy the crowd, even if that means releasing the guy that was committing murder to try to he would have murdered Pilate if he'd have gotten that far with it.
Right.
But he's like, oh, okay.
And then on the earthly side, you're okay murdering an innocent person because of that.
That your own wife says, I have a divine warning from God to not deal with this guy.
That couldn't have gone well after that with his wife. It's all said and done, man.
No, he's something special. We're coming to him this week.
Okay,
this is you got to deal with Pilate the man.
Oh, okay.
He is a conflicted, weak, divided man in every way. And it's like I almost included it this week, but Barabbas was such a big deal. I thought I'm gonna have to circle back and then we'll deal with it from the side of Pilate.
That's good, man. I look forward to that.
Oh man.
All right. There was a couple questions within there that I wanted to talk about, some spiritual application and things like that too. So you had used basically two ways that Barabbas is. We choose Barabbas, which is our sin or the pleasure of the earthly things. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. We choose Barabbas is almost the consequence of our choice.
Yeah.
For envy, they now have to deal with Barabbas.
Yeah. So within consequences, you had talked about guilt and shame. And so I wanted to talk about that for a minute because I think, well, let me ask you, then we can both talk about it. Do you think there is guilt that is necessary? Like, is that guilt from the Holy Spirit? Is there guilt from Satan and the world that is unnecessary? So how do we know the line of going, man, I feel guilty. Mm-hmm. What should my response be? And how much of that is maybe the devil trying to knock us down or genuine conviction of the Lord? How do we discern with guilt and shame?
Well, by definition, I think for the believer there is no guilt, meaning a verdict rendered, a charge levied upon you because of what you have done by way of offense of God's righteousness. There is no guilt. All of the guilt was put on Jesus at the cross, and we are no longer guilty. That's why we are justified. People use guilt interchangeably with some things, and it's not necessarily correct, but conviction is what you would say.
Yeah.
The weight of conviction for your sin, that you are walking in unrighteousness, even though there is a sin that God has forgiven you of. You fracture that fellowship, that peace with God. But there are things like shame and these things, but that's where when you come to an understanding of how you are protected by the gospel, there should be none.
Yeah.
There is conscience and these kind of things that testify, but
guilt
for the unbeliever, there's nothing but. So it's hard to differentiate that a little bit when you're talking about these things. But the difference between a believer and an unbeliever and describing all that is significant. It's significantly different. The unbeliever is 100% guilty, and there is no grace upon them, having remained unrepentant.
So let me ask you about a response then, because I think there are a response to whatever. Let's just say, whatever. Everybody has that thing. They knew they shouldn't have done it. There's remorse, but there are people who then will ruin the rest of their life, and they almost feel like, I can't be in church anymore. I have to hide away. I'm unforgivable, and they let that shame identify them and control their life. Right. But then there's also the person that would be like, oh, I shouldn't feel guilty at all. Like, Christ saved me, so whatever. And I'm just going to not skip a beat and go on. Right. So, how do what should that moment be in understanding conviction whatever, and then getting past that.
Well, I mean, I think the prodigal son is a good, he goes and he wastes all his father's inheritance, and you could talk about it in terms of salvation, or you could, there's a lot of ways you can talk about it. But the point is, when he becomes repentant in his heart, when he comes to his senses, he just comes back to his father, and he wants to earn his way back. He says, the story's in Luke 15 if people want to do it, but I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of your hired servants. I just want to be a slave now, because he's saying, I don't deserve any blessing, any grace, any restoration in relationship. I just want to come back and be a hired slave. And the father will not acknowledge that. He comes back, cleans him up. He does not acknowledge. He doesn't say, okay, well, for 3 weeks you can do this. He just puts the royal robe, puts the ring, the sandals on his feet, and throws a party and says, my son has come home. For the believer, that's how it is. We wander away from God sometimes into the pig trough. But when we are convicted of the Holy Spirit, we are drawn, we return, we're just back. Not because of anything we could earn, but because of the Father's mercy and grace and love for us. You're just back. So just accept that. And utter humility. It is astounding that we can just come back like that. For the guy that says, well, because that's the case, I can do whatever I want. The Bible would warn against him, and I think Romans 6, and it says, shall we go on sinning that grace may abound? It says, God forbid. You could even question if that man is even a real Christian.
Right, because you kind of miss the whole point with that too, if that's the mindset with it. But I know, I think it was good. You used the term repent or repentance, which is a Christianese term, but it's it's in the Bible. But it's the understanding of realizing, recognizing the wrong and turning from it. So maybe that takes a week or something. Or maybe for the prodigal son, however long it was, maybe that takes a minute, and you're like, oh man, I don't want to do this anymore. So like, we use the dumb example of like parenting or whatever, and like you ask your kid to clean the kitchen or clean the room, they don't do it, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Well, if you're sorry, you just go clean the room.
Just do it.
You would take the action to do something about it. And I'm not mad at you for the rest of your life. Like that's kind of how I see it in that sense. Like, I'm not going to think about it forever, but if it bothers you, if you are genuinely repentant of it, you're gonna correct it.
All right.
So, but I do think, man, there are people that have let that shame, there's something like stop you from living a life that follows Christ. Maybe a hideout, or just I can't even be around that. That's a sad situation. Because 1 John talks about like how much if you genuinely knew how much the Father loved you, he's not like trying to beat you up and punish you. He just wants you to understand, like, come to the Father's arms. I know that's a prodigal son point too, but
I mean, the biblical definition of love in 1 Corinthians 13, it keeps no record of wrongs.
Yeah, that's good.
So, but for some reason, we keep it upon ourselves and imagine that God is doing the same. He is not.
Yeah, very good. All right, the reference back to John 3, we talked about why people get into these sins and things like that. Let me flip back and read it. So you had said, I know why. It's because verse 19, this is the judgment. The light has come to the world, that people love the darkness rather than the light, because their works were evil. So the question I have with this is, why does that entice? Why do you think that is? The enticement of sin outweigh like the goodness of God? Why is it that we seem to choose that? Let me start here. Is this for believers and unbelievers alike?
Well, so there is a temptation to both, because the believer still lives in fallen flesh. I do not think it is the same, though, because we have been made a new creation. We are transformed by the renewing of our mind. He has created in us a clean heart, the Bible says. We begin to, and so any real believer can give illustration of, I used to love these things, maybe getting drunk, sexual immorality, partying, the approval of people, greed, and they don't anymore. Mysteriously, they're like, I don't have the same desire, because he changes our desires. There is a temptation, though, in the flesh, especially when we grow distant from God, like the prodigal son and so forth. But as a blanket statement, the reason anybody, believer, unbeliever, the reason the sinful flesh likes it is because we are corrupted from the very beginning. It's an infection from the Garden of Eden that has permeated all of humanity, heart and mind. And so we have this disease in us that desires the darkness, and it didn't used to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
And when that just like a viral disease infects the body, this is a disease of the soul. And so that corruption feeds itself on the darkness, that infection. And we all have it, and Christ sets us free from the curse of it, and Christ, begins to heal us from it and make us holy out of it. But until we are fully redeemed and in the new heaven and the new earth, we still wrestle it a bit.
Right.
But we have the power to wrestle it and win. Unbelievers do not. They do not win it.
Yeah,
they cannot.
That is the difference. So would you say it is possible then for a believer to love some form of darkness more than the light? Is that possible?
Oh, that's a good question, right? I mean, I suppose maybe like a illustration like a Samson or somebody that you cannot do it while, walking in fellowship and obedience to the Lord. You'd have to be under a season of disobedience, of rebellion.
Yeah.
Maybe, again, Samson and those women and some of his pride and those kind of things. I guess, so David, right?
Yeah,
David and Bathsheba, he murders her husband and then he repents. Like in that moment, as a life with the Lord, I don't think so.
That's a good way to say it.
In that moment, I do think because of, his slippage, not from salvation, but just from obedience and holiness and into the world. Yeah, I think so.
Right.
I think many people have done it, me included, probably.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, cool. Anything else? I know we talk about all the pilot stuff, but is there anything else in this that you were like, I could have gone in this direction, something that you cut out from the original prep from the sermon?
I don't think so this time. I only cut stuff relating to Pilate. That was the conflict, and I kept staring at the notes like, what is happening here? This is going to be an hour and a half. Yeah. I was saying, we can't be doing this.
Yeah.
I had some illustrations in my life that really didn't work that I'm like, and so I cut that. I'm like, you're forcing it. And I was satisfied with just what was said. Like, it was not a hard thing to understand. We're Barabbas and Christ sets us free. And what you choose to do with that is your salvation or peace with God and so on. No, I like that one. I've thought of that a time or two before in my own reading. I've never preached Barabbas in my life. Ever. Never. I don't think I've ever mentioned him in a message. Yeah. Which is weird.
Right.
It's just weird. I never have.
No, you're right, though. He's a forgotten part of the story, and there's a lot to it. So what would you say, just the last question, is the final takeaway for, let's talk to believers right now. Believers that are going, I am saved. What is the takeaway, or what should I learn from this message of Barabbas?
Yeah, I wanted to think about my own self and make people think about, if you accepted that freedom from Jesus and you realize what happened and you are grateful in any way, in the same way that he gave his life for Barabbas, the Bible talks about Christ who is our life. Mm-hmm. And so the question is he your life? Does he have your life, or did you take it, the grace of God, the freedom of salvation, and walk back into the world indifferent to full surrender to him? Like, how much of your life belongs to him now that the giving of his life has set you free?
Yeah.
And I think if you ask it right to your own heart, it's a convicting question.
Yeah, I know.
People are saved.
Right.
They are, because we're not saved by works. Many people are saved, but their life does not belong to Jesus. I mean, parts of all of our lives. But how much does he have? And should he have more and more every day? Just not out of because he's mad or because it earns us anything, but because you really realize what's going on here, having been made a Christian. I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
They don't. They live for the world.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we're going to get into Pilate next week?
Yeah, we got to do Pilate. We got to deal with this guy. There's a lot going on. He's a fascinating character. Sometimes I like him. Sometimes I want to like him. And then other times I'm like, I think this guy's a real dirtball. Like, this guy is a coward.
Yeah.
This guy. But then I'm like, we're kind of Pilate too. It's another one of those things like.
Right.
We're him too, so it's easy to beat him up, but I'm like, I kind of know what's going on here.
That's good. All right, well, today we get to send you guys off with Hail to the Victors. I'm going to specifically send this out to my two Michigan friends, Greg and Greg.
Couple Gregs.
Big Michigan fans. Go Blue. Let's get this thing done. As always, don't take our word for it, be in his, and we'll see you next time on the Encore.